Good evening. I expected to, since I came on abruptly, that nobody would be out there expecting me this late at night, but here I am. It is a video I wanted to do, though I think I'm going to do more around this particular subject, but I wanted to tackle this right away. I was very disappointed, and my perspective of Joe Rogan has significantly plummeted because he endured an issue which almost took him off the airways, if not for the fact that he has so many subscribers and he makes so much money that to kick him off his platform, there's a lot of big companies that would lose an awful lot of money. So of course that didn't happen. Money and power always wins in the end. But the bigger deal, which he should be concerned about, outside the fact that he earns a lot of money and he has tons of subscribers, for the very fact, hello there, Peace, how you doing? For the very fact that he's very fair, very rational, always you expect to get a fact-filled, rational debate where he sits back and he listens to a lot of opinions from a lot of different people that he doesn't necessarily agree with. But that's the First Amendment, free speech. We have free speech in this country. It's what America is all about. And if he's all about holding up the ideals of America, which I think he might be, if not, he would be off the air, because there were a lot of people, like big names like Joni Mitchell and Neil Young, and don't let your head spin with these powerful names that we hear all the time, and several others said that they would remove all their music as if that was going to do something. At one time, I think in the late 60s, that would have been a really big effect if they removed their music from anywhere. But not necessarily now. Joe Rogan is the voice, vox populi. He was the voice of the people. He sat there and listens, and hello there, Black Samurai, and asks questions, interesting questions that we would ask, as if he not knowing the answer, and usually becoming very surprised at what he's hearing from people that their opinions aren't necessarily politically correct. In fact, most of them aren't. And a lot of figures that he has on his program are usually like Jordan Peterson. They kind of really rock the boat, don't they? So for him to say, I don't want to have Donald Trump on because I don't want to help him, he knows his power. He knows his power has really gone to his head, that he's the kingmaker. He knows that he has got such a big audience, and his audience is probably moderate or in the middle of the road. I would say people from both sides who are more to the center, whether you're left or right, listen and enjoy his program. But what he's doing is the opposite. It's the antithesis of what his program is about. Now, he said that it's because that Donald Trump is divisive. And I really, really think that that's very, very funny. If you've been keeping up with the news and you don't just listen to the mainstream media that has a very, very clear bias on what side that they're on. If you're listening to any news source that has a very clear bias, that you might want to take some of the information with a grain of salt and let's see if this is all true. Let's see if is what they're saying completely true. Are they trying to push, a candidate in that they want to see in, which, as Joe Rogan should know, what happened was they took a very effective president that a lot of people didn't like. And the people that didn't like him were the ones making the noise, were the ones that were violent, that were creating violence all over this country, hatred, destruction. He should have been in the catbird seat, watching how this country was being destroyed, watching what COVID did, and that he went after the same therapies. Remember, Trump was looking for therapies because the answer to an illness before you get the vaccine, and you got to make sure that vaccine works, it's a good vaccine, is therapies. But we were not allowed to take any therapies. We were not allowed to promote any therapies or any other type of cure, which Joe Rogan went after all of them. And the left, and he knows this about the left, completely tried to pummel him and out of existence, pummel his voice and his success with the therapies that he tried, and that none of them hurt him. Knowing that the left was lying, and he's up against, by taking these alternative therapies or therapy. There's only one thing. There's either one thing that Dr. Fauci wanted you to take, only one thing, as often for the rest of your life, even if your head falls off. And there are the other therapies, everything else, that seem to be working for people. And the interesting part about that is that we usually are allowed to do therapies. Usually these therapies, even if it's vitamins, any kind of therapies, usually allowed to do them. And the idea was they were trying to tell you that they're not tested, tried, and true. They could be they are probably very damaging, and you should not tell anyone to take them. But the vaccine itself, which is the greatest thing that's ever happened on this planet, the only thing comparable is the freeness and fairness of the 2020 election. Now, when I got my vaccine, and it didn't dawn on me when I got it until it was my pharmacist that gave it to me. I live in a very blue state, and if you don't get the vaccine, you will be sealed shut in the smallest box that they can find in your house. So he asked me, this is not, the FDA has not approved this. We want you to know that you're taking a vaccine that is not approved by the FDA yet, so we don't know. We're not responsible, and the big pharmaceutical company is not responsible for anything that happens to you, and you can't sue. Now, to me, I don't know, there must be something wrong with me. Maybe you can tell me. The therapy, which some of the therapies were around for 60 years, and even if it was a new therapy, the therapy seemed to be working. The vaccine, we really didn't know. So we had an unknown with the vaccine and had to say yes. And the person that's going to be giving it to us had to sign a form saying that we would not sue if something happened after taking this, because the vaccine is an unknown. No, we were not allowed. Hello there, John Harrison. Oh, thank you very much. Looking good tonight. Yeah, this is, I thought, thinking of tops. I was gonna come on July 4th. It's one of the reasons why I got the American flag there. But this was going to be my July 4th outfit. But we were on the understanding, or we were pressed by Democrats that Fauci, that canonized Saint Fauci, that by taking anything but the vaccine, you're taking horse dewormer, medication that wasn't for humans, medication that was just ridiculous because nobody knew what it did. And you're just shoving crazy things in your body, and only stupid people do that. Like Trump said, to put bleach in your body, which he actually said is their UV light, because there are some therapies, UV light does kill a lot of things. And after listening to what he said, I realized myself, learning about the different vaccines through the ages. He said sterilizing something in the body. Is there any vaccine that will do that? And they took it as bleach. When the truth was, when I learned about smallpox, the vaccine for smallpox, every vaccine works differently, by the way. Vaccine for smallpox, that's exactly what it does. It sterilizes smallpox in your body. It's exactly what it does. And I realized that not only was Trump not a dummy, and not telling you to do foolish things, he was actually researching therapies. He was researching vaccines and how they worked. That's how he was finding all this stuff. Now, presidents usually don't do that. Usually you do leave it to the doctors, but I think he was looking at the country, and that citizens who had done absolutely nothing wrong were on lockdown as if they were prisoners. The economy, which was the greatest economy that we'd ever had, more minorities were working than ever in history. This was being destroyed. And after 2 months of lockdown, at the end of May, he said, we've got to open up. He came right in, we've got to open up. We've got to get out. And summer was coming. Much less likely outside. The UV rays usually kill things. Safer time to get out and get things going. Now, they did say that I heard some Democrat people that are no longer my friends at all whatsoever claim that Trump was faking getting COVID. That's why he was healed in 3 days. Well, he took the monoclonal antibodies, which Joe Rogan also took. And eventually they were available in Florida. And then the overreach from Fauci stopped the monoclonal antibodies, which apparently sounded like, because people were healed in 3 days, miracle, resurrection, they didn't like that. They didn't like the fact that people were being healed by these therapies, seemingly a cure. Why? I don't understand, because to get those antibodies, to get these different therapies, some were on the market like for 60 years with the one that we're not allowed to even say the word malaria thing. These are still drugs that you get from pharmaceutical companies. So it does kind of confuse slightly. We know that the pharmaceutical companies made a tremendous amount of money. I know Bezos and Gates made over $30 billion during the lockdowns. Pfizer was going through bankruptcy, and they all of a sudden, but they're really close in the WEF in 2019. The CEO of Pfizer, said that they were working on a pill that if you take the pill, it knows what's going on in your body and sends a signal if you've taken the pill and what's going on in your body. But that was something recently I saw on, they were doing the WEF. They were reporting some things that were going on, and that was a flashback to 2019. But anyway, I guess Pfizer is in good with the right global leaders, and they made good. They made good. But you see, if it was healing us, if it was about curing us, right, then all these therapies, the pharmaceutical companies could be making tons of money on these therapies, right? Because everybody would need them, right? They would buy them, so they would make a ton of money. Was it about therapies? Was it about a vaccine? Or was it about maybe these things worked very well, and maybe they would prefer having a vaccine that you have to keep taking, which also can happen because viruses morph. Now, Joe Rogan is in the position to have seen, because he fought this and they tried to take him down because of this, that the left, the Democrats, hated him and in fact believed that he was a Trump supporter when he had supported Bernie Sanders. Which makes me even more confused that he knows how much the left fought to get Trump out of office. And there was that interesting article by Time magazine in February 2021 after the inauguration. They were very proud of themselves. All the Democrats were very proud of themselves. And Time magazine wrote how, and all the things that they could write about how the election was fortified. Joe Rogan knows how much they fought Trump. He should know now, because it's come out, that the whole Russia thing was a lie, and that Hillary, she was fined for $8,000. It was not even a slap on the wrist. And so was the Democrat National Committee, those $110,000 they were fined for making up the fake dossier that came out. So, and she's the one who said, who, without knowing any of us, called us all deplorables, Islamophobes, homophobes, everything she can think of. She totally painted us with the same brush, even though she doesn't, of course, racist, of course. How could I forget racism? They never let us forget that one. Without knowing any of us or asking us why. Or why do we believe that Trump isn't any of these things? So we don't one iota. And if he was one iota, I'll tell you right now, there's no way I would have voted for him or like him at all. Not one iota. He knows what she said. And I would say that was very divisive. In fact, it was more than divisive. It was violent. It made a whole segment, half of society, hate the other half by painting lies on them that weren't true. So they kept fighting. They used our money. I said $50 million. It's really interesting. The Mueller investigation, first they said, was it 20, 25 million, 35, and it keeps going up. And I'm going, 50 million was a guess. And I said, I bet it's higher than that. That they wasted our money, our personal money, the poor people. Joe Rogan isn't poor. He could go through, we could be in this depression. It's really a Great Depression. They changed in a recession occurred during the Carter administration. And they called it recession instead of depression because people were still alive that remembered the Great Depression. So recession sounds a lot better, right? And Obama, after Bush and then Obama, there's another recession. And in fact, before Biden, Obama was claimed because of what he did and so all the people that were out of work and the minorities that were out of work, that he was actually worse than Carter. Notice how we're not hearing Obama at all. We're not saying it just goes from Biden to Carter, not that Carter's number 3 now. Biden's number 1 and Obama's number 2. But we don't hear that because that must be politically incorrect. So I won't say it, okay? Let's not talk about that. Anyway, he should know this, and that the idea of divisiveness comes from one side of the aisle. When Trump was nominated, or he won, president-elect, he said, now it's time for everyone to come together. We've got to come together now. I want to be president for all of you. I want to be beneficial for everyone. Let's all work together. He was not divisive. And in fact, I think it was someone on MSNBC said, I like that he said that. They were looking to see if he was going to, or listening, see if he was going to say something like that. And he actually did. But a little time passed, the two gruesome twosome came out, and they were dressed in purple, which I think is kind of interesting. There's a melding of the maybe that's what they were going to wear when she came out, because she was going to be president. She was going to say, we're wearing purple because we represent all of America, which is actually a very nice thing. That was one. I'd like to say, if they're listening down now, Bill and Hillary, I get what you did. That was a beautiful thing. And I love the color purple. If you've noticed that I use it a lot, I love the color purple. But that was a beautiful, beautiful thing. But the thing that wasn't beautiful was the dossier and the Russia investigation. And instead of all of our leaders working on making America great for all its citizens, you kept fighting and lying and creating fake documents and using our money to investigate. And Trump had to use his money to investigate, and his own people were that's tyranny. When you shackle them and around their ankles and their wrists, and you do it in public, and you have CNN out there filming it, and none of these people did anything whatsoever deserving, except for they worked or helped Trump. And what you were doing by doing that is, it was very clear. You're saying to everyone who is supporting of Trump, who worked for Trump or helped Trump, if you help him again, if you help him, this is what we're going to do to you. We're going to destroy, not only humiliate you for doing nothing wrong, but we're going to destroy you. You will be blacklisted. Like, remember those first responders, the doctors, how much they praised them? And that was before the vaccine, for working. But when they didn't want to take the vaccine, because a lot of them actually already got it because they worked with people with COVID. They already got it. They were already immune. And being in the scientific field, they know that when you catch something, you develop immunity. You see, that was known in science at that time. But what they did was, if you didn't take the vaccine, and they knew the vaccine wasn't tested, and knowing that they would have to agree to, if they took it, to whatever happened, and they couldn't sue. And they said, we're in the medical field. When we see stuff like this, we usually shy away. Well, if they didn't take it, they were blacklisted. So they basically lost their profession. Now, Joe Rogan also knows this. This was awful. And there was really little Trump could do. The first thing I thought of when I first saw Fauci and Birx, the scarves, Fauci and Birx, I said, oh my God, it's over with. America is over with. I felt it right away. That's it. It didn't even have to announce the lockdowns yet. Nothing. I can imagine, because the tide was turning against global warming. People were realizing that this was a farce. It was to make money. It was to destroy basically everything. And we wouldn't be able to afford to just be independent and live our lives. We would be completely poverty stricken. And we could see that carbon is a nutrient. That's why they make fertilizer out of it. And it is also the most renewable source of energy in the world, because you breathe out carbon dioxide, the plant breathes it in and gets nutrients, and breathes out oxygen. It's instantaneous. I've never heard anybody say this, but it is. It dawned on me the other day, my God, that it's the most renewable out of all of them. And they're saying that carbon dioxide is bad. But even Joe Rogan, in all his wisdom, didn't figure this one out. It took me, which YouTube doesn't really want my voice out there. So that's why I'm depending on you to like, subscribe, share, get it out there, because the algorithms don't kick in unless you do all those things. So I need your help. I mean, you're wonderful. You are the people I love the most, and you're here listening to me. And you're always faithful. So remember all those, and I don't say it because I don't like to tell people that please do this or that. But I guess I have to do, because other people do it. And you know, if it works for other channels, I should do it too, huh? Anyway, Joe Rogan. Now let's see. Okay, so where does the divisiveness come from? So we should vote for DeSantis because the Democrats and the rhinos put up a tantrum, literally just boiling it all down. Then the lies and the lies about the Hunter laptop and that Hunter is in bed with the Russians, with the diamond that's $3.5 million, and the money from China, and all that stuff. All that stuff. Oh, it was Russian disinformation. Oh, guess what? We found out it was all true. It was all true. Okay, so Trump is the divisive one who had to spend his money to get lawyers because they were constantly fighting him. He was the divisive one. Okay. He was the one that was what? The Abraham Accords. He was creating peace in the Middle East. He was a divisive one. He was doing all this stuff anyway, despite the rhinos and the Democrats throwing a tantrum and lying, creating lies and violence in the streets, burning down our country, defunding the police, bailing the Democrat Party, bailing these people who are violent and doing criminal behavior, bailing them out. And as Kamala said, and they're not going to stop, and they're not going to stop, they're not going to stop. Trump is the divisive one. Okay, so if Trump isn't there, and despite all that, creating the greatest economy, literally, that this country's ever seen, employed more minorities, he turned this country around before he even was inaugurated. He went to these companies and either convinced them to come back, making a deal, or convinced them to stay. When COVID hit, he went to India immediately and said, we make all our aspirin, all our medicines, our vitamin, all this stuff in China. We want to give you the business. Immediately. Despite all this, Trump kept fighting and fighting and fighting. His poll numbers kept going up and up and up every single day during COVID because he came out with a press conference. And the Democrats didn't like that, so they wanted Cuomo to run for president. So Trump is the divisive one. Trump's the divisive one with the greatest economy that we've ever had, with diplomacy, not just the Abraham Accords. It's unheard of. Peace in the Middle East between Israel and the Arab countries. That's unheard of. And he did it while you were fighting him. And he was spending his money, and he left. He was worth $10 billion. He left the White House worth only $2.5 billion. That's a lot to lose. That's $7.5 billion he lost, and he never took a paycheck. He donated it to charity. No president has ever done that, and he's divisive. He's divisive. Steve Harvey voted against him. And he asked Steve Harvey to come up to Trump Towers. And because he wanted to reach out to the Black community, and he wanted to help them. He wanted to build them up. He wanted to improve their schools. He wanted to build up their homes, their communities. He wanted to make sure they were employed and educated and bringing them out of poverty and the massacres that occur every weekend. He didn't like that. And he wanted to reach out to the Black community. It wasn't just Steve Harvey. There were some other ex-boxers, 100% for Trump. He reached out to them. And Steve Harvey said, "Look, sir, you know I didn't vote for you." And he said, the night before, I had thought of an idea. I never thought of it, but the night before I was going to meet with Trump, I thought, what about places that Black people can go, minorities can go, and to get education and outreach and therapy and all that stuff that they need, a support system. And knew what Trump said? I like it. I'm going to have Ben Carson call you tomorrow. Would that be okay? He thought of it the night before, and Trump put into action immediately. And then when he came down with Trump Towers, Trump is also a jokester. You know he's a jokester. He was serious. He did exactly what he did. He did that and even more. He gave more money to Black colleges and Black schools than any other president ever has. But he also always likes to joke around. And he came down. Hello there, Texas Shepherd. Oh, that's right. Smash that like button, y'all. Thank you so much. All the reporters were out there, and Steve Harvey came down. The reporters were asking him, what did he talk to you about? You went up there, and Trump is so horrible. What did he do to you? And Trump saw this, and he went up to him, put his arm around him, and said, we're going to destroy Obamacare. And it was just, and Steve Harvey is like, we didn't say anything about that. But Trump is funny. He's an entertainer, and he takes things lightly. That's why he survived all this. He's surviving all this. But to you, Joe Rogan, after everything you've been through, being in the catbird seat, seeing everything that's going on, finding out that these were all lies, seeing how they fought him, and they're still fighting him, and he's out of office, and they're still the Manhattan DA is still trying to sue him, throw him in jail. The January 6th, they will not stop. He's the divisive one. They keep doing this based on nothing. And he's the divisive one. You're smarter than I am. I know you must be smarter than I am. You know the truth. Is it that you are afraid to be on Trump's side? Because if you were, you're afraid that they'll destroy you like they were destroying him. Well, that's great. That's how you keep America afloat. America is sure to split down the middle, and everything gets sucked down to the bowels of hell. Excellent, Joe Rogan. Excellent for helping America. You are freaking afraid. But guess who's not afraid? Donald Trump. Now, I'm going to show you the little examples. Just a few examples. Now, where is... I want to start with this one here. Let me see. I think this is a good one. Do you guys know Noam Chomsky? He's far left intellectual, smartest as smart can be. And I'm going to, I'll explain a little bit, and I'll play you what Noam Chomsky said. Okay, the most prominent leftist intellectual, perhaps the past 50 years, is Noam Chomsky. He was asked a question about foreign relations, in particular, the war in Ukraine. And Noam Chomsky said that there is one statesman above all others who deserves credit and praise. And, we should copy this statesman, hear what he has to say, and actually put it into effect. And as a left-wing intellectual, he's not always right about politics, but he's one of the greatest intellectuals of our time. Let me just play you what Noam Chomsky said, so you know I'm not BSing you, okay?
There is, fortunately, one statesman in the United States and Europe who has laid out, a person of a high political figure who has made a very sensible statement about how you can solve the crisis, namely by facilitating negotiations instead of undermining them, and moving towards establishing some kind of accommodation in Europe, maybe in which there are no military alliances, but just mutual accommodation. He didn't mention all of this, but he suggested something similar. Move towards negotiations and diplomacy instead of escalating the war. Try to see if you can bring about an accommodation, which would be roughly along these lines. His name is Donald J. Trump.
Donald J. Trump. You never thought you'd hear it from Noam Chomsky, a virulent critic of Trump and conservatives. Since the 1950s, you can hear from his voice that you're watching. You can see Noam Chomsky is now about 175 years old and father time, but he remains as sharp as ever. Could you hear that? Could you hear that well? Because I can read it if you didn't hear it. If you didn't hear his voice. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Just type it in there. If you could hear Noam Chomsky speaking well. Anybody? So I won't play any other clips if the sound isn't coming through well, if you know what I mean. But it's very important. These types of clips are very okay. You heard it. Great. Thank you so much, Black Samurai. These clips are very important. These things are very important, and it proves the great Joe Rogan wrong, or say the little Joe. Or little Joe from Bonanza, the Cartwrights. Little Joe. To me, I see him as little Joe now. I don't see him as the great Joe Rogan, because you would rather have somebody who's not divisive, like DeSantis isn't divisive. He's a politician. He was a congressman. He knows how the swamp works. That's true. Trump didn't know anything. It's interesting because Trump didn't know anything, but he knew diplomacy. Trump didn't know anything, and they thought that Kim Jong-un was going to blow everything up, but instead, Trump joked with him. And how dare he do this? He's going to incite this Hitler-like crazy man to blow up the earth. And he didn't. He was just joking. He wasn't intimidated by him. It's kind of like a New York attitude. You never show fear. You never show fear. In fact, he didn't show fear, but he joked back. And what happened? He went over to North Korea and he walked without his security detail over into North Korea. That is without fear. And Kim Jong-un looked at him and smiled. Kim Jong-un was very apprehensive. And notice when Kim Jong-un came to South Korea side, he was afraid. You could see that he was afraid. By right, he has no idea what's going to happen to him because he knows what the world thinks of him. He knows what's going on in his country, that his Kim Il-sung was his grandfather, who's still the president, even though he's dead. And Kim Jong-il was his father. It's kind of like they had a way of running this country. And Kim Jong-un has no other choice but to run it the same way. Otherwise, if he doesn't, it's them or him. I certainly don't agree with he has, I have a feeling that he's preserving his life because if he changes and looks weak, then he's gone. And he's probably right about that. So when you saw Trump walking with Kim Jong-un coming to the southern Korea side, which he's never done before, he was close to Trump, and his body was slightly turned in. And I didn't have to listen or watch any body language person to tell me this. You could see that he didn't trust anybody else, but his body was turned towards Trump because he trusted Trump. He knew Trump was being honest with him. He knew Trump wasn't lying to him to get him to do things and then pounce on him. I'm sure his whole family's been lied to for eons, but he knew that Trump was laying it down and he was talking the truth. And so by turning slightly towards him, kind of means that he knew that Trump, he trusted him, and nothing was really going to happen to him being close to Trump. And then when they walked to the other side, Trump did it on purpose. That was an incredible show of strength and diplomacy. That was diplomacy, because that wasn't warlike. He didn't come with all his security details, all armed to the teeth. I'll go across as long as I'm armed, as long as I'm... No, he went alone. That was strength. And when he got to the other side, it was strength, it was diplomacy, and it was friendship. We want peace. I want to show you that you don't have to keep blowing off these rockets, because Korea, that was a war that I'm not quite sure if it is ended yet. Technically on paper, we left, but it never really ended. And that America goes into foreign wars all the time. And we think it's for noble reasons, but we were told that. But then we find out later on it wasn't so noble. So for Kim Jong-un, a very, very tiny country, but I'm sure, Kim, there's nothing else. There's nothing else about you that's tiny. I guarantee that. The country might be small, and he has to show force, because America could come in, because we've been there before, and we've got enough to blow up the whole place, take it right off the map. He knows this, and he has to constantly send those missiles out to show everybody, don't try to take us down. That this is the only way he knows how to do it. Could you imagine living in that family, what it was like, and what he was taught, and what he believes about his family and himself? It's a whole worldview that we will never understand. So this is the only way he knows how. It's all about survival. Even if he's the only one that's going to survive, it's all about survival. But that shows diplomacy. It shows a man who doesn't want war or wants peace. It shows a man that is not divisive. It's a man who is constantly fighting off a war that's unnecessary, his own people, when he wants to just help. He just wants to make everyone prosperous and independent and free, keep America free. But see, he's one man, and the world is now globalist. And there's people with a lot more money than he will ever have that have already decided the pieces on the chessboard and where the pieces are going to land and who's going to fall off that chessboard, who's going to lose. He's the one man against that. So Joe Rogan should know this more than I. Let me see if I can find another clip here. This little clip is about Trump has a very interesting attitude about things. And it's also self-deprecating if you catch the nuances. He's talking about Joe Biden falling off a bicycle. And he does it like an entertainer, not really like he's like a very charming entertainer. And then at the end, he's kind of self-deprecating, if you can catch it. So let me start.
Greatest travesties of all is to see a person in the White House who, even after years of political experience, has absolutely no clue how to be the president of the United States. And I hope he has recovered, because, as you know, he fell off his bicycle today. No, I'm serious. I hope he's okay. Fell off a bicycle. I make this pledge to you today: I will never, ever ride a bicycle.
So play this. He turns it into comedy at the end, and kind of like he's just very nonchalant, and assures you that he knows if he got on a bicycle, he would probably fall off. So he's not going to do it. So it isn't like he's just saying Biden is the only one, because he's old, that would fall off a bicycle. But I'm telling you right now, I'm promising you, I'll never get on a bicycle. Because he's basically saying, if I did, I would fall off. It's like a comedy routine. His timing is impeccable. You see, he's not a politician, but at the same time, he's a statesman. And he does their job. They're pissed at him because he just walked right in. They decided at probably a very early age that they wanted to be president. Why? Power and money. They got respect from everyone in the world, deference. That's why. So they work their way up. And Trump, to them, just walked right in. But he didn't just walk right in. He had a whole lifetime he's been watching politics. He's a world traveler. He talks to the heads of countries. He watches how things are done and thinks of better ways of doing it. That's why he builds buildings. And when he puts his name on it in gold letters, it's, instead of looking at it as narcissistic, he's saying, this is the gold standard. This is the best building. I have worked so hard I hired the best people to do the best job and get everything in that building is the best. And when we wait on you, or the food that we make you, everything is the best. I will not put my name on it unless it's the best. So when he became president, his idea was not, I'm president, I'm a narcissist, and I'm going to make even more money. No, he wanted to make America in gold letters. This is the best. It was a great country. Now it's the greatest country. This is the best country. And it's not the best country for the wealthy. It's the people who were the poor have a way to move up. The economy is so great. I have made the economy so great. And he did. And improve the schools for poor minorities that everybody can move up. The difference between communism, capitalism, as much as Marxists hate capitalism, the difference of America is that there's a middle class. In communistic, fascistic dictatorships or monarchies, there's the poor and there's the noble class and the king, royalty, noble class, and then the poor. There's no middle class. The middle class is very important. If you don't like power, the people with power and money, the Marxists say this a lot, you need the middle class because it's a springboard from poverty to the middle class. And from the middle class, it's a springboard to wealth. And similar what happened in India, there's a caste system and you can never leave the caste that you're in. If your father burned bodies or your grandfather, you are going to burn bodies for the rest of your life. And there's different castes. After the English went in and left, even though they did a lot of damage, what they did do is that they kind of weakened the caste system because and education. The people of India, the youth especially, could get an education. And those who got an education and made money, the caste that they were in is dissolved. Essentially, they're equivalent of a Brahmin. And with capitalism, it was socialist. With capitalism coming in and people lots of people have their own businesses. And they make little things, but they make money. And there's no huge taxes like in this country. But because of capitalism, socialism dying and capitalism rising, people who were eating 1 meal a day or no meal a day were eating 2 meals a day or 3 meals a day. It was a springboard to go up and a springboard to get out of the caste system. Now, that is what Trump was doing for America in an extremely short period of time. He started when he was elected. He went out and he was working before he was constantly working. When he was elected, that's it. He was going to meet with heads of countries, heads of companies. He wanted to get America back on its feet again. He wanted everyone to prosper. So he could say, I did that, but really, should you say, well, he shouldn't do that. He shouldn't be able to do that. Well, because he did that, these poor people are now people who are dying in the streets from illegal guns, or the fact that they needed an education, they now have intact families and can send 2 kids to college. Once we had African Americans used to be the top drywall and roofers. And since the border was open and cheap labor came in, they lost those jobs. And they could, on that salary of roofers and drywall, they could have an intact family and send 2 kids to college. That's, if you care about African Americans, well, that's the damage. When you have an open border, that's one of the damage, other than the drug cartels and the overdosing of people dying of fentanyl. It's coming from China, coming in through the cartels and going back and forth. They're going back and forth across the border, you know. It's not in Richmond, Virginia. There was 2 illegal aliens that were going to shoot up. They were going to shoot a parade also on Independence Day. And they had been coming back and forth across the border many times. So there's some reasons, there's more than one reason why the border needs to be sealed. But Joe Rogan, I'm going to finish my thought. They thought he just walked in. How dare he? They were jealous as hell. These people who got their jobs, very few of them got into office to help the American people, to better our lives and to better America. These people simply got into office for power, to work their way up to the top. Otherwise, the jealousy wouldn't be so great. Hillary, it was her time. What the hell did she do? It was her time to be president. How dare he do this? What did she do to deserve to destroy Libya? Bomb it for 10 months? And then after they shoved the bayonet up Gaddafi's butt, ISIS came in and then put the Black Africans on auction blocks and in cages and sold them as slaves? Is that what she did? Oh, ignore Benghazi. There was like 600 and over 600. I did a whole video on it. Telegraph messages to the State Department saying they're going to break in and kill us, and they didn't do anything. The night that it happened, she went to bed. Remember, she had the commercial. Her and Obama actually do hate each other. She had a commercial that said, at 3:00 in the morning, when there's an emergency, the hotline is ringing. Who do you want to be picking up that phone? Meaning her rather than Obama. What it was actually very racist, what it was implying. Her whole campaign was racist, actually. Because the idea that she's a white woman and African Americans are known to sleep more. Let's just put it that way. And she's also the one who started the birther thing. Sidney Blumenthal worked for her and found a photograph of Obama dressed in African garb and put it out there to show he wasn't really American. There's also a picture of her, Bill Richardson, and Obama and a big American flag. They're playing the national anthem. Bill Richardson and Hillary had their hand on their heart, which is what we all do, national anthem. And Obama had his arms by his side. That was to show he's not American. Also, he wrote, as he was the first African-American editor of the Harvard Law Review, without writing anything. He didn't write anything. And there's numerous, which I could name off the top of my head, African-American intellectuals that have written voluminous amounts of accurate, fact-filled, well-researched information. Well, it was because Harvard wanted a notch. So in his bio as editor, he wrote that he was born in Kenya. That's what his bio says. And I've looked on the web and found that this is, even Snopes says it's true. On his press release for his book, Dreams of My Father, the press release, which is supposed to go to all the bookstores and the media, it's a little paragraph write-up about the author and about the book. It says he was born in Kenya, but when it became politically expedient for him to run for office of president, he had to be born in America. Oh, and also, it may or may not still be on YouTube, but Michelle Obama is speaking in front of I believe it's class of I believe it's at a college, African-American college. And she said out loud, when we went to Kenya, the birthplace of my husband. So Hillary found these things. Well, actually, Sidney Blumenthal, who worked for Hillary, found these things and put these things out to make it look like not only is he not American, he was not even born in America. And there's one more thing, and I forget what I had it at the tip of my head, but we can still move on from here. Oh, yeah. Oh, I just remembered that one. Hillary, there's no way you can win this election. And the reason why she couldn't win the election, and she knew it, they took just like did for Bernie, they took it away from her because Obama was not on the ballot in Michigan or Florida. So therefore, he would not have, no matter what he won, he wouldn't have enough electoral votes to get the nomination. So they had the conference on TV. I remember Donna Brazile was there. They were all sitting around the table talking about what they should do, how many electoral votes they should give to Obama, as if he was on the ballot officially. So they're just assuming he would have gotten X amount. And I remember Donna Brazile saying, my mama said, when something is right to do, you gotta do what's right. Well, that was right. So see, this is the backstory what pissed Hillary off. There's a fire brewing in the Democrat Party, and the whole idea of I'm owed, even though they didn't do anything, just because it's my time and I'm a woman and it's time for a woman, but not anymore because nobody knows what a woman is. But they asked her. It was before the primaries in California. I remember I was working for this elderly woman. I was watching television. I saw it come right over the wire. They said, Hillary, why are you still in this race? There's no way you can win. And she said the most incredibly damning racist thing in the world that should have banned her from politics and her voice forever. Not only was Trump not responsible for the birther thing, it was her. But she said something that nobody who cares about racism or what's right, nobody should say. She should have been, that's it. But no. That's how hypocritical the Democrat Party is. And Joe Rogan should know this more than I. They asked her, know what she said? Well, everyone remembers what happened to Bobby Kennedy before California. Is that a shocker? Is that a shocker? That's a shocker, isn't it? If you don't know what happened to Bobby Kennedy, he was running for president because his brother had been shot in 1963 on November 22nd. And so he was walking through, he had just spoken, he was at a rally, he was walking through, making it through the kitchen as if that was a safer place. And about 3 or 4 people, including a couple women, were around him. And a gentleman named Sirhan, who came from Syria, he happened to be a Syrian Christian, shot him. And nobody can figure out why would he have come over from Syria to shoot Bobby Kennedy. What would that have even mattered? He's a minority. Sirhan is a minority whose life is on the line constantly, living in Syria because it's a majority Muslim country. Why would he do that? But he was shot before the California primaries, which made the runner-up Democrat took his place. But Nixon ended up winning that election. So that should talk about the worst thing anybody has ever said, ever. And talk about who is the racist. People who vote for Trump? I could also give you lists like what he did for Jennifer Hudson, made a video on that, of things that he's done throughout his life for the poor and for African Americans and for Hispanics by employing people, whether they had education or not, that didn't matter to him. He said, I'm looking for people with street smarts, because people who have education don't necessarily do anything, and they're usually lazy. I want people with some street smarts. That's why Jesse Jackson gave him the same award, Donald Trump, for employing and promoting more minorities than any businessman in history. The same award as Muhammad Ali and Rosa Parks. And in that award ceremony, Jesse Jackson had asked him, now Jesse Jackson hates Trump because he has to. He has to hate Trump because he said something bad about Obama, and then the African American community and the Democrat Party started hating Jesse Jackson. So he had to turn around and get back in goods with the Democrat Party because Obama said something very good. He was speaking to an African American audience, and he said something very good. And we all totally agree with, that the father should stay in the home. You should stay married to your wife and raise your family. And Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton were watching from the green room. And I saw this happen, and my mother and I were watching the television, saw it live. And he said he was so angry that Obama said that. And I think he was jealous of Obama, because Jesse Jackson always wanted to see the jealousy of people who always want to be president, who feel they deserve to be president because he marched with Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King should have been president. Jesse Jackson felt that he was the successor to Martin Luther King. So you see the jealousy building up. It's evil. It really is. So he hates Obama. So he said, he made a movement with his hand. I want to cut his balls off. That's what he said. He made a movement with his hand and said that. That was awful. So in turn, though Trump, he had asked Trump previous to the award ceremony that the Rainbow Coalition, we need a building that we can afford. Could you find, he was real estate, obviously, Trump, could you find one that's affordable for us to rent or something? And because we want to promote diversity and, helping all minorities. That sounds like a good thing. And Trump looked at him and said, he was holding up keys, and he said, that building you wanted me to get for you or find for you, I bought it for you. Now, Jesse Jackson had to turn around and hate Trump because he needed to get back in goods with the Democrat Party. You see how all this works, and see all these little things that I remember just because my parents were, I even watched the hearings of Clarence Thomas hearings. I was making some kind of food. I was, mother being Italian, you have to cook, doesn't matter what your age is. And I'm watching this whole thing. And I find that that's also very interesting. It's Alito that wrote the decision. And all the Democrats are calling Justice Thomas horrible names. They want to do something to him and his wife which says to me, Alito wrote the decision. All the other people who voted on it were all white, but the only person you're just trying to destroy is the black one, who is not the one who wrote the decision. You're trying, why are you picking out the black one? Democrats, are you racist? Did you have anything to do with the Ku Klux Klan or Jim Crow laws or slavery, perhaps? I find that very, very interesting. Let's see if there's one more. What's this? This is, I think this is amusing. Well, I don't want to make this too long. Let's see. This is the one I was thinking of today. See if, is this it? Okay. All right. It's about Kim Jong-un. There's a couple of things, there's a couple other clips that are amusing that I'd like to add to, just to tell you that mentally, or how they said that he should be tested for Alzheimer's, he's insane, he's a psychopath. Well, all these little things show you he's got a great sense of humor, and he doesn't have an anger streak of any kind. He doesn't have any of the things that these other people have that feel that they deserve to be president. He actually is mentally, what do you call it? Right on the money. Mentally as normal as or as normal should be. What is normal anymore? The word was the word I'm looking for. Sane. Very, very sane. And they say when you talk to him, there's the Trump that gets on the mic and is like the showman, tells jokes. And when you get to know him personally, like you're in his presence, even Steve Harvey said that everyone is very surprised at how he's a little more soft-spoken, and he's very caring. He's very empathetic, and he sincerely wants to help. So Steve Harvey was so taken back. He said, this man sincerely wants to help, and he gets on the phone and he makes it happen. And that's what people are very surprised. They say, oh, he's a narcissist. He's bombastic. He's divisive. He's all these things. No, he's a stand-up comedian, and he doesn't get bothered if people don't laugh. He'll make a joke out of it. Let's see. Okay. All right. Okay, let me drink a little water. I'm getting kind of thirsty. Okay. Yesterday was Kim Jong-un's yesterday was Kim Jong-un had been boasting about he has a button and he's warned. Remember, he was warning us that he was going to press the button and blow up Hawaii or something. Yeah, and he has a nuclear button on his, and Trump said he has a nuclear button on his desk, and he stated that his button is bigger than Kim Jong-un's button. So the tweet is, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un just stated that the nuclear button is on his desk at all times. Will someone from his depleted and food-starved regime please inform him that I too have a nuclear button, but it is much bigger and more powerful one than his, and my button works. So I mean, it's actually pretty darn funny. As it turned out, we know what happened is that he went over and met him, and as I described earlier in the show, that he walked with him without his secret security detail across to North Korea, just him and Kim Jong-un. And he shook his hand. And you could see Kim Jong-un was very, very scared. He wasn't sure if he would do it, what would happen. And Trump was very relaxed, very calm. It was an amazing moment. And then he walked back with Kim Jong-un into North Korea, into South Korea. And Kim Jong-un was very scared because he knows that South Korea has been an enemy. But under the Trump administration, those tensions kind of relaxed and they started talking to each other, and the relations did get better. But like I said, Kim Jong-un, you could see that he was next to Trump and turned towards him because he knew that he could trust Trump and that nothing was going to happen to him being next to Trump. So if you think that he's some kind of psychopath, Trump, I mean, he's not. He's the most level-headed politician who's not really a politician that we've ever had. Because I think if you go into politics to get to the top and not really get in there to help people, the way you go about doing anything isn't from a standpoint of, I really want to bring people together. I want peace. I want prosperity. I'm working for the good of not just my people, but I know I'm assuring other leaders, you should love your country and you should do the best you can for your country. Everyone should have national pride and work for your people. That's why he's not a globalist. Because globalist world, you've got one dictator at the top. And it's all about what's best for him, or what's best for the way he sees the world, and the real estate around the world, and the natural resources of the world, and who he wants living in certain places and who he doesn't, and what resources he wants used and what resources he wants to keep. It's all about taking the whole world instead of, this is your country. Work for your people. Make it the best country possible. He kept saying that. Narcissists don't say that. They want to own the whole world. You notice all these leaders who hate Trump and call him a narcissist are doing the beck and call from the guy who wants to own the whole world, because we'll be happy if he does that. They're doing the beck and call of, we can count the billionaires on our hands that own the world, that are buying up politicians around the world, especially in America, that are very lax on crime and let go violent criminals and are creating violence across our country. You see, they hate Trump and call him a narcissist. They don't like him because he's fighting against what they're lackeys. They're lackeys for the greatest narcissists that have ever lived on this planet. They're doing their bidding. They hate Trump because he's in the way. And all these leaders think that they're going to have a nice place at the top, because that's the way communism works. There's the people at the top, but there's really just the dictator. And that dictator will decide exactly how many people are at the top and how much money they'll loan, because it will come down to he will also own everything, even their stuff. There's a big surprise that they're all going to get. But in the meantime, since they think they're going to get something, if they say yes to the guy who's going to, if you don't go with him, then you're going to get destroyed. Well, they think they're going to do his bidding and wait till it's finalized. They're going to get a big, big surprise. But anyway, I just want to see if there's anything else that Trump might have said. Like there's other two things, but I figure I'd rather cut this short instead of showing absolutely everything. It's along the lines of my button is bigger than yours and it works. Oh, I have a button too and it works, something like that. See, Rubio was doing a Don Rickles impression. Let's just turn this on now.
Telling me little Marco. And I'll admit, the guy, he's taller than me. He's like 6'2", which is why I don't understand why his hands are the size of someone who's 5'2". Have you seen his hands? They're like this. And you know what they say about men with small hands?
Notice that they said that Trump started this. He was talking about it. Trump didn't start this. Rubio started this.
You can't trust them.
He said I had small hands. Actually, I'm 6'3", not 6'2", but he said I had small hands. They're not small, are they? I never heard that one before. I've always had people say, Donald, you have the most beautiful hands. Right? He hit my hands. Nobody has ever hit my hands. I've never heard of this one. Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee you.
This and I'm watching it. I just figure going back and forth with this, the way this thing works, StreamYard isn't really very smooth when you go back and forth. Sometimes the audio is better. He's very relaxed. He's laughing, and Rubio is laughing too. He's not even feeling. He's not feeling like Trump is insulting him. It's kind of like. Do you ever see the debate between Ronald Reagan and Walter Mondale? And Walter Mondale was bringing up, and the media, the people who hold the debate or journalists, and they were implying to Ronald Reagan that he was too old for the job. And Ronald Reagan said, I don't think I'm up here to be president, to be president of the United States, and I don't think it's fair or right of me to bring out the fact of the details of my opponent's youth and inexperience. And even Mondale just laughed. I'm trying to remember this from memory. Everyone laughed. Everyone just, because obviously the media, per usual, even then, were not Republicans, were against Ronald Reagan. They want another Democrat in office. And even they laughed. And Mondale, just like in this instance, you see the split screen, Rubio is laughing, even though Rubio was the one that was trying to needle in on this and was trying to put him down with this. He was the one who brought it up. And he's laughing. He took it as a joke too. He said, oh, it's like, you just gotta let go to basically the master, the guy who's really got everything together. So Joe Rogan is is very mistaken, and I think it's not the whole idea. I'm hearing people who are very faithful supporters of Trump and know exactly what the Democrats did. They're saying, well, he's got a lot of baggage. He shouldn't run. He's got a lot. I can't believe. And one of them said, well, yeah, he's got baggage. He's been on the Enquirer a lot. Everybody knows about it. Well, that's one of the things that's good about Trump is that politicians, you find out there's all these skeletons in their closet, or they hide the skeletons. We don't know about it. But with Trump, everything he's ever done is right in front of our faces, good and bad. We know there isn't anything to pull out that's really going to shock us, even though they tried to convince us that there was something that was so bad, and he's probably got dementia, and he's a psychopath. It's like none of these things. Everything we know all about him. So I'm very. They have this idea that Ron DeSantis, since he was a congressman, all the rhinos will work with him better. The Democrats won't throw this fit like they did and work so hard and spend all this money and create all these lies. If it's Ron DeSantis, when it and then call Trump divisive, because they're throwing a tantrum and they're destroying the country and really creating a lot of violence and making one side of the country hate the other with a bunch of lies. These things aren't even true. They're painting us all with the same brush. And it's you really think if it's not Trump, because Trump did such a good job. He did such a good job in such a short period of time. I've never seen a turnaround in a country like this before. Things were already turned around before he was inaugurated because he was working like a dog. And Ron DeSantis has picked up some of the same policies and even the way he talks. And Trump backed him to get into office, and now DeSantis pulling away. It's, to me, Trump is the master. He's the guy who worked this magic, which we thought it would be impossible because we're so used to politicians getting up there and doing nothing. And that's one thing Ron DeSantis has realized. You got to get in there and give results. because that's exactly what Trump did. Trump gave his word. This was his promise, and he did it. He fulfilled his promises. He didn't shirk on them. And so DeSantis is basically copying Trump without the showmanship, I suppose. And to basically poo-poo Trump, the guy who wrote the book on all this, the guy who did it in a way that nobody else has done it better than anyone else. I mean, usually a politician, all they do is keep destroying the country. I mean, the Democrats and the Republicans are letting them do it. They're just letting them destroy America and break us in more ways than we could ever dream possible, to keep us in poverty and say, there's no poverty, the economy is great, and that nobody's doing their job in this administration. They're not doing anything. They're just getting paid. This is tyranny. This is a coup. We know it. It isn't like, oh, guess what? I've got a secret. They're saying it. They're saying it out loud. This is not a mystery. This is nothing that I'm telling you that you don't know, that isn't over all the televisions and newspapers in the world. And the world is shocked at what's happening to America. I listen to news from all over the world, and they're shocked. They can't believe that we voted Biden into office. They can't believe what this administration is doing. This is news from all over the world is shocked. So isn't like this, by saying that there's certainly the progressive wing has taken over and is running the show, and is running the show different than even Biden would have run it before he, reached a certain, age. Would you say age? Okay. Trump is not divisive. This party, or the progressives, the Democrats, they're being run by bigger people, by a globalist. Now they call it liberal globalism or global rule, or they keep changing the name. There's a new name, something about global rule or rule global, something like that. They're the ones in charge. And it's not about us. They're not going to help us. Things are not going to get better. Schumer is going to pass a bill, a different Build Back Better, but a little bit toned down a bit. Or not Build Back, Green New Deal, the Green New Deal, which is like FDR's New Deal, which was not a good deal. I'll do another video on that one. I was going to do a prayer stream after this, but since it's 12:38, I'll do it tomorrow night, or if not tomorrow night, Friday or Saturday, as soon as I can. But I just happened to be really busy today, and I'm sorry I didn't get on until late. Had so many things to do. But anyway, so if any of you out there know Joe Rogan, or if you could please like, share, subscribe, please share this video. Somebody send it to Joe Rogan. What are you doing? He's in the catbird seat. He's got the money. He's going to be living a very comfortable lifestyle, no matter what happens. And they won't fire him, get rid of him, because he brings in so much money. He has the ability to change the way people think. And of all people, he would be the person to have Trump on. Because if he did, he would get Trump talking. Trump would be talking about things, bringing up things that people would say, aha, I get it now. You see, the Joe Rogan show is kind of like that. He's kind of like the everyman, asking the questions. from somebody that seems politically correct or very always creating an upheaval nobody can understand. And then he talks to them, and then you understand what's going on, and then everything kind of settles down. In fact, it would be very helpful for more people who don't understand Trump to be on Joe Rogan, so people really do understand what he's really about and what he's really done. Yeah, the last thing, the Abraham Accords. Abraham Accords. Yeah, Joe Rogan needs to hear this right now. We, the undersigned, recognize the importance of maintaining and strengthening peace in the Middle East and around the world, based on mutual understanding and coexistence, as well as respect for human dignity and freedom, including religious freedom. We encourage efforts to promote interfaith and intercultural dialogue to advance a culture of peace among the three Abrahamic religions and all humanity. We believe that the best way to address challenges is through cooperation and dialogue, and that developing friendly relations among states advances the interests of lasting peace in the Middle East and around the world. We seek tolerance and respect for every person in order to make this world a place where all can enjoy a life of dignity and hope, no matter their race, faith, or ethnicity. We support science, art, medicine, and commerce to inspire humankind, maximize human potential, and bring nations closer together. We seek to end radicalization and conflict to provide all children a better future. We pursue a vision of peace, security, and prosperity in the Middle East and around the world. In this spirit, we warmly welcome and are encouraged by the progress already made in establishing diplomatic relations between Israel and its neighbors in the region under the principles of the Abraham Accords. We are encouraged by the ongoing efforts to consolidate and expand such friendly relations based on shared interest and a shared commitment to a better future. That is the last act of the Trump administration. Probably the greatest act for humanity since the dawn of time, since Jesus Christ. Don't want to leave him out, huh? I'm going to leave that link so you can read it, so you really know who Donald Trump was, what his administration did. And there's more. There is so much more that he's done. And that's the amazing thing about it. They fought him. It was like they pummeled him in a battle that never ended. And they sent fire and flames and cannonballs and in all directions, in front of him, on the sides of him, and behind him. And still, he worked for the American people. He got poorer, he took no pay, and he kept working for us. And as you can see in that statement, working for the whole world. He wanted peace. He hates war. He's the only president who's never started a war. He wants peace. He's sane. In fact, I think he's the most sane together president that we've ever had. Anyway, God bless you and good night. And join me again for another talk and some prayers so we can move towards a world as described in the Trump-Abraham Accords. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, share, and please do leave a comment below. Good night.